Good morning, I'm John Melby. This is Gaming with Madness. This morning we're going to talk about a game called Ginkgopolis from Z-Man Games. It's a highly prized game in the industry, and we'll be going over the gameplay a little bit, summarize it, and tell you why I think this is a great game. Ginkgopolis is a 2012 game by Xavier Georges, published by Pearl Games and Z-Man Games. It's been out of print for a number of years and has been one of the most highly prized games that people wanted to get. But Pearl Games has said they got a reprint that's coming out sometime later this year. We don't know when yet, but we've already seen some preliminary artwork. This is prized because it's a different kind of game. There's a lot of things that we don't see in other games. It's basically an abstract city building game where we start out with a basic city of 3x3 tiles. We build up on these tiles, and on the outside we have little letter plaques. We can build a tile to build something to expand the city out. And at the end of the game, whoever's got victory points by getting intermediate victory points or building the best districts in the city will win the game. So in the game of Ginkgopolis, you've got tiles here, the city thing you're building. You've got construction cylinders, which we won't talk about much. We have these little octagonal cylinders called resources in each player's color. The player has a number of resources. We've got victory point tokens. You'll have a little, player screen to hide things behind, which we're leaving face down so we can see what's going on. And we've got a bunch of cards that give you powers and help you in your building. So the initial setup is the basic tiles here. You can see the tiles have 3 different colors, blue, red, and yellow. And for the colorblind people, they have icons for each of those, so you can easily tell which color is which. Each color goes 1 to 20. We start out with colors 1 through 3 colors, 1 through 3 here at the beginning, and letters around the outside. And when you build, you're going to build up or push these things out and expand the city to more than 9 tiles. In the initial setup, beside the basic city we've got, everybody gets some starting cards, which give them initial resources and some powers. I've got some resources here, I got a couple tiles, and I started with some victory points. And then everybody gets 4 cards to start their hand. There's also little tiles here that you can use for some things in the game, which are minor. We're not going to talk about them too much. So what goes on in the game is everybody looks at their hand of 4 cards, picks one of these cards, puts it face down in front of their screen. Everybody does that. Then to play a turn, the first player turns up this card. I'm the first player, does the action. Everybody else does the action. And then you take your cards, pass them to your left, including the first player card, and then everybody gets another card, so everybody has 4 cards to play with again. And this thing goes on here. Playing the cards either puts new tiles out in the city or gets you resources. And this goes until the stack of tiles here is depleted. Then we have a little process to remake a little stack of tiles that'll be pretty short. And then we'll have a second phase that's only usually a couple turns long. And we end up totaling the game. And it ends up being how many of these victory points you got during the game, plus what city districts you control here for extra points. So, there is, when you play a card, you put a card face down, and you may optionally put a tile with it, and there's basically 3 things that happens here. If you play a card alone, you're getting resources in a couple different ways. It's immaterial, the details you can get later. And you want to get new resources, which are these little cubes here, or you want to get more tiles, because if you don't have resources or tiles, you can't build in the city. The other 2 ways are building things up. And building things goes 2 ways. Here I played an A, so I'll build my tile out there. And when I build a tile, I claim it with my resource. And we put a construction marker on there for other reasons we'll talk about in a second. The other way of doing it, if I'd played a different card, here I'm playing on the red 3. So I take my tile, put it on the red 3. Because that's level 2, I put 2 resources on it. So, either get resources, move the city out, or move the city up. And there's some bonuses along the way for getting other resources, which we'll talk about in a second here. It's really, the details are really immaterial. When you build up, you kick somebody else off. So if this guy built on top of me, he'd kick my resources back, and I'd get a few victory points for that. He's now level 3, so he gets 3 tokens. It gets higher. Higher up means more tokens, more control. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a district like this that you have the most resource tokens on. Now, the other thing about this is when you build up, I play this build up card, I take this and add this into my set of cards, which gives me more powers. And there are 4 different things these cards do. One gives you endgame victory points. One gives you points, I don't have any cards here like this one. If I play a card alone, I'll get some resources. This thing says if I play a card on one of these green discs, I get some resources. At this point, I've got 3 cards here that say if I play a tile on a tile, building the city up, I get all of these things. So these build your engine, making you more efficient to generate things for the whole game. You play turns until this deck of drawing cards is gone away. I didn't say you can play this game with 1 to 5 players. Once this deck is gone, you basically build things up and you reconstitute the deck by getting more things out here. For example, we've not gone out a yellow 14 card. I got to search here and put the yellow 14 card in the deck so they can build up on there. It's a little more complex than that, but it's not much. And that's basically the whole gameplay of this system. Ginkgopolis has one expansion called the Experts, which we haven't played with a lot, but it has some nice, interesting ideas. I like this game for a bunch of reasons. First reason is, while I don't like abstract building game, I do like building games, and the mechanisms here are different and kind of unique, and it's an interesting way of doing things. It's also a nice time. It's about an hour-ish long time, and it doesn't drag even with the players, because while I can play with 1 to 5 players, the 5-player count, everybody makes their decisions of what card they're going to play face down simultaneously. They've already figured out what they're going to do, so when you turn this up, there's not a lot of delay. So the thinking part happens simultaneously, and then the play is pretty quick. You know, this process of building things up, taking tiles away from opponents, changing colors, is a nice little tactical game. It's got a lot of nice little interesting things. The rules are weird enough that it takes you about 1 game to figure out what all the weird rules are, but in reality, the one guy that's doing the setup and changing everything is the only guy that knows the rules in detail. All you have to know is how you build your city, which is pretty easy. So I'm very happy with this game. It's got a lot of nice colors and has a very interesting game. Thank you all for watching. We will see you next time.